Chile, as you pointed out earlier in our discussion, Chile, the difference between them and Haiti was Chile learned the lesson of life. These are lessons of life, right? Chile learned the lesson. They built stronger cities, better houses, and they survived the earthquake that happened a few weeks later without as much destruction or loss of life. Haiti, unfortunately, has been abandoned by the world. So it's not so much that God has shown his unmercy toward us, lack of mercy. Man has shown his lack of mercy toward man. And that has caused a greater loss of life. But God in general is very merciful. And he does save life. He does preserve life. Just take the equation of how many lives he keeps safe and sound, as opposed to those minute numbers. I'm talking human history now, who actually suffer loss of life in these kind of catastrophes. Mm-hmm. You see the percentage is so small, you would wake up again saying, thank God. For most of my life, you took care of me. If one day I suffer, then what is that? For most of civilization, most of the world, you take care of. If one part of the world, because of some other benefit, which I cannot see through earthquakes or tornadoes, some lose their lives, I shouldn't complain. I should realize that God is overall mercy. And this is an experience.
I think it's very poignant. I mean, those experiences of the people who survived the earthquake, I mean, obviously, we've seen that tragedy unfolding. And it's interesting, the analogy made with Chile as well. Dr. Saab, if I could come to you very briefly on this. Again, these are also, in a way, coming back to not God's lack of mercy, but showing mercy in a way of illustrating what can be done to assist also, if you like, human development. For example, Chile is a very practical example where they've improved infrastructure support, improved buildings. In this young girl's mind, she's 14, she's going back into her school. She will obviously outline exactly what Azhar Sahib has said, but nevertheless she's being challenged, well, God of mercy, and you see child loss of life, etc. How does she explain that in sort of very simple terms, in a child's language?
Well, the thing is that we are very short-sighted, and we only see what is right in front of our eyes, and we tend to forget what is before our eyes and what is behind our eyes. So we have to consider that we have to take the overall picture from the creation of life to now and to eternity. And Allah has over and over said that this is a trial and a tribulation for you, and therefore certain tests are sent to us. Some are natural disasters, some are man-made disasters. Man learns from some of these catastrophes, as you have said, and then tends to obviously make sure that he is not affected to the same degree in that respect. But more so than that, these natural disasters also are great signs that have been sent by Allah for recognition that this is the coming of the latter days. This was one of the signs that was predicted by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that when Jesus, son of Mary, would reappear in the earth in the latter days. So whatever we see, these earthquakes occurring, it does make one think back and think, yes, these are signs that Allah is showing. But as far as thinking back from the aspect of the merciful God, Azhar has obviously outlined that beautifully, and that brings it to home of how
I suppose there is in the context of when we see these disasters, that if you go back to the scriptures, you can actually see that this was part of the bigger picture, as you rightly said, unfolding. But also, I mean, just thinking through in practical terms, it also, does it not revive in a person, or if it wasn't there before, it brings it to the forefront, the ultimate sort of charitable nature, the human sympathy, empathy nature. So, you know, they often say that disasters bring the best out of people. It's not just a phrase, it's a reality, as
it's true. You know, the human being is one that shows love for two kinds. That makes you human. You love each other as animals do, but then you love God. And because of your love for God, see, this is where God comes back in the equation. Because of your love for God, you will extend yourself even further than the other human being in helping your misfortunate soul. That shows God is there, because there's been so much outpouring from so many agencies, and people have been doing it just for the sake of God's love, including our own group, Humanity First. This is where you see signs of God, and they suffer so that others would benefit. They'll give up their water, their food, their sleep, whatever. And this is, again, where you see God. And God does this to bring the best out of us. And I end by saying Confucius has a statement. He says, man is like a tea bag. He must be put in the hot water to bring out the best of him, you know? Now, some don't want hot water, but this is what God knows. We need it sometimes to bring out our best.
There was one point which I'd like to add to all this. It's that after all that, of course, they can accept that, but still, some people will have this interrogation in their minds that, but what about all those people who died? It's a good example for the ones who survived, but what about those who died? But we have to remember that God is also not only mercy, He's also justice. He's completely and totally, absolutely just. And He is going to judge all those people whose lives were cut short by this catastrophe, obviously much more leniently. Everything will be judged and according to the circumstances. So in the end, at the end of all that equation, what we'll see is that the people who were taken early will be compensated for any loss they might have incurred, and so justice remains. So it's in no way at all unjust towards them.
Because, I mean, ultimately, God has laid down these principles. It would be somewhat ironic if He didn't Himself apply them.
Precisely.
Gentlemen, Jazakallah and Ghazala, I hope we've answered your question, but if there are other comments or thoughts you've had based on the questions or the answers rather you've heard, do remember the email as applies to all our other viewers as well. That's faithmatters@mta.tv, faithmatters@mta.tv, and the fax number is 44208 687 8037.